This is Yowah Radio.
A warm welcome to the Yowah Radio podcast. The Yowah Radio podcast is an opportunity again to listen to one of our inspirational, thought-provoking interviews that we have brought to the listeners of Yowah Radio. Yowah Radio is online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We are your wellbeing and happiness radio station, bringing the feel-good feeling to every single day of the week. Check us out at yowahradio.co.uk. Now sit back and enjoy this podcast from the Yowah Radio team.
With inspirational guests from across the world.
This is Yowah Radio.
So I am really pleased to welcome back the wonderful Sarah Brown. And Sarah joined us, I think, a couple of years ago now, talking about her first book. And she's here again to talk about her being part of a second book, but also talking about being a self-love catalyst. So she's the self-love catalyst, sparking your inner flame and facilitating your journey to self-love and acceptance. She helps sensitive, empathetic men and women remove past conditioning and the fears and doubts that have been put on them. She does this by accompanying them on a journey to heal their past, reconnect to their inner child, love themselves enough to create a brighter and better future. And this leads them to step into their life purpose as they have reconnected to their heart and fundamentally changed how they see themselves. So without further ado, let's welcome back Sarah Brown.
This is Yowah Radio.
So welcome to Yowah Radio, and today I'm delighted to welcome back Sarah Brown to Yowah Radio. So welcome back, Sarah. You joined us, I think, maybe in 2020 now. It seems a long time ago, but and you're all the way over in France as well. So lovely to have you here. So welcome back, Sarah.
Thanks, Jo. Yeah, it does seem like a lifetime away in a way, doesn't it?
I know, it does seem such a long time ago since we last spoke, but you're here today to talk about how you've essentially redefined your business, the way that you coach, and also you've been part of a wonderful multi-author book called Evolving on Purpose, which I'm guessing is perhaps why you've evolved and you've changed the way that you do things. So would you like to tell us a little bit about your journey over the last year or so?
Yeah, sure. So the last time we chatted, I was still defining myself as a coach, and that is still part of what I offer as a service. But I now call myself the self-love catalyst, and I'm going to explain why it's come back to this, because it really has sort of come full circle for me. So going back to last year, when we started last year, I had loads of plans, beautiful projects and things, and I was on this particular track. And every time I sort of took a step forward, there was something that was pulling me back. And there was a lot of, there wasn't actually resistance from me, but things just weren't working out. So come June 2021, I was just like, you know what, I need to take a massive step back from my coaching business and from what I was doing and how I was putting things out there. So I went on a wonderful retreat in the south of France, a week of yoga and meditation.
Wow.
And it really helped me to reconnect to who I am and what I want to do and how I want to help people. And when I came back from the retreat, I had this opportunity to be one of the authors for Evolving on Purpose. And the name immediately spoke to me because I was in this second, third, fourth, maybe even fifth transformational phase in my business. And I love the way that she'd sort of worded the title of the book, Evolving on Purpose.
I love that. It really resonates because it is about, you know, we do evolve all the time, don't we? And we said off there, you know, you can morph into anything that you want to. Just because you're doing one particular thing now does not mean to say you have to stay in that box or that way of thinking. And if you want to transform, if you want to evolve or morph into something else, that's your choice. You can do that. But I love the fact that it's evolving on purpose. It's really like, you know, allowing yourself to evolve, because we all evolve, don't we? I mean, when I think of my, you know, 15-year-old self or my 25-year-old self or my 35-year-old self, the essence is still there, but I've really, really evolved over the years. And yeah, and it's allowing yourself to do that, isn't it? And accepting that it's okay to do that.
Yeah, and that's a really big thing. And I love that you've actually sort of talked about accepting, Jo, because what I do now, what I've sort of redefined myself as this self-love catalyst, is sparking your inner flame, because that can get dimmed or even put out, and facilitating your journey to self-love and acceptance. And a big, big part of evolving and transforming is also accepting. It's accepting who we were. It's accepting all of the life lessons that we've already experienced. It's also accepting where we are today, and accepting that there is change that maybe needs to come or wants to come in. And so just accepting all of that. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I love the way that you said, you know, you were, for 2021, you had all these plans, you had all these projects, but there was something blocking them. And sometimes I feel like that is the universe stepping in and going, no, this is not your path. But in that time, we're convinced, aren't we, that that's where we should be going. And sometimes we need to, like you say, stop, have a break, take a pause, step back and think, actually, what is my intuition and what is the universe actually put in there? And why are these things not happening? Is there a reason why they're not happening? And start to look for the things, start to look for the clues. There's always clues there, but sometimes they're a bit hidden and we can't find them, can we?
Well, this is it. And this is something I mentioned in the chapter I wrote in the book. So if it's okay, I'm just going to read a very short passage from that, because I actually sort of brought together a lot of my experience, of course, in this chapter, and realized that there were 3 main clues for me, which I can obviously share with everybody, because I'm sure it's not just for me, you know. So the first clue, which I've also said is a blessing, is that our mind can be our best friend or our worst enemy. So it can either tell us that we're the greatest person on earth or that we'll never be enough. And basically it's up to us to decide which voice we're going to listen to. Are we the greatest person on earth because we all actually are our greatest person on earth? Or are we going to buy into that little voice, which can actually be a massive loud voice saying you'll never be enough? So that's the first sort of lesson and blessing that I share in my chapter. The second one is our soul is always whispering to us, always. And it's up to us to tune in or not, and to trust what it's saying or not. And as I go on to explain in the chapter, I learned this the really hard way back in 2008, because our soul, whether we realize it or not, is always whispering to us. And it can be in the form of messages that we hear, signs that we see, like you've mentioned, the universe sort of putting these obstacles in our path, on our path. And if we actually just take stock of that and realize that it's just a way of saying this isn't your path right now, or maybe ever, and just being able to take that step back. So that's our soul speaking to us. And the third thing is our past holds the keys to set us free, whether or not we know it. And so that's the journey that I take people on now. It's really sort of combining those 3. It's the mind, body, soul. Because when we have all of those keys together, when we're able to actually look at all of it and find the pieces of the puzzle and put them together, then that is actually where the transformation happens as well.
Yeah, I love that. And it is, and it all has to start with us, doesn't it? Our inner intuition, our inner wisdom, and working on ourselves before we can fully, go for what we want in the world, really, and take those paths that they're always there, but sometimes we don't see them or we choose to ignore them. But, those paths are there for us. They're just waiting for us to travel down them and find the way.
Yeah, definitely. And the self-love catalyst, that came to me end of November, beginning of December last year, 2021. It was all of a sudden like this spark just said that this is who you really are, because all of the people I've helped, whether it's on a one-to-one basis or in a group workshop setting, they've all said that in not so many words, but that is what it is. My purpose here right now, anyway, is really to be that catalyst.
Yeah.
And the word coach, I'd really fallen out of love with that as well, because it means a lot of things and none of it seemed to resonate with me anymore. And looking back, that was also holding me back from being who I really am, because it didn't fit, that word didn't fit me anymore. And you know what it's like you said before, when you're trying to like fit in with whatever, and that's also a really big sign that you do need to change something, and it can be a small change or it can be a really, really big change. So yeah.
And it's funny, isn't it, because you're right, when you use that word coach, it conjures up a specific thing for somebody. They don't understand all the other stuff that is part of that. And I'm guessing you're still coaching, but you're not, it's not wrapped up as coaching, is it? It's more discovery and exploration, which is all a very similar thing, but you're wording it in a way that is easier for people to understand. And I think easier for them to understand that it's about working on themselves as well. Yeah. Because that word coach, when you say it, that word coach it's quite a word that just, isn't it, actually? And I mean, I'm a coach myself, but I'm just thinking about that word coach. It's like, yeah, it doesn't sound very exciting, does it? But, you know, when you really truly explore, like you say, what it is that you feel your purpose is, and obviously that's come out of the clients you've been working with, hasn't it? It's kind of presented itself to you. And like you say, until you have that light bulb moment and go, okay, this makes more sense. And I was working with a soul coach. I had a soul coach session last year, late last year, and it was amazing because it took me right back to my childhood, actually. And when I started to understand some key things and really important things that were part of my childhood, it made me really start to understand what it is, why I do what I do, why I want to do what I do, what my purpose is, what my why is. And it was a really interesting experience because it brought up things that I really hadn't thought about or explored before.
This is it. And this is one of the things I share in the chapter, talking about your soul, because our soul knows, our soul really does. And our soul is obviously there from the minute we're born, and actually even before we're born. At least that's how I think of things. And so once we go back that far, and that's one of the things I also do with my clients, is to take them back on this journey. But it's self-discovery. So we look at the key parts of their lives. We look at also some of the trauma, because that's part of their life and we need to clear that, and I help them to do that. But it is, and once we actually realize that our soul has always been like sowing these seeds or presenting us with the right people or the right opportunities, just going back to the self-love, when I was really, really taking this step back last year, I journal practically every day, and I keep my journals. And I just felt inspired to go back to more or less the beginning of my journaling journey. And I'd already written self-love in there.
Wow.
And that was how I wanted to be as a coach. And when I actually read back what I'd written six, nearly 7 years ago, I was like, wow. Like you've just said, it was there.
It was there, but you obviously, for whatever reason, went off on some different paths, but now it's brought you back to actually where you started, essentially.
But this is it. And this, for me, is also the evolving on purpose, because I truly believed that if I'd have run with that at the time, I wouldn't be here where I am today doing what I'm doing, and I wouldn't have had all of the other experiences, which have sometimes been extremely difficult for me over the years, even as a coach, even with all of the tools and techniques that we've got. That doesn't necessarily mean that life is totally easy all the time, as you well know.
No.
But so I know, like you've said, that we're always doing what we need to be doing anyway, and that we're always in the right place, even if it's extremely uncomfortable. So it's enabled me to learn lots of different things about myself since I first wrote those words, self-love. To also love myself for who I am, because that wasn't true at the time once I just qualified as a coach. So I think it's a really beautiful journey for myself to have come all this way, and that really resonates with me. And since I changed since I actually started putting myself out there as a self-love catalyst, my sort of business is really on its path now. It's gaining so much momentum. I've never had a January like this.
Fantastic.
All the time I've been self-employed. So many beautiful opportunities, so many clients coming in. It's just totally different and totally aligned as well. And I'm able to get my message out there just as I am. There's no more doubting the messaging or questioning what I'm doing. You know, it's just there. So
it's there. And I love the fact that you also said, you know, everything else that's happened in that 6 years or however long it was, it's learning, isn't it, to get you to this point. And like you say, it's kind of, the seed is sown. You knew where it was you wanted to get to, but actually you weren't ready at that time because you had to have all these other experiences and have all this other learning. And I think sometimes we forget that, and we forget the power of that. And sometimes you can look back and think, well, why did I go down that path? What was all that, you know, was that wasted time? But it's not, because what it does, it strengthens you. It gives you new learning to get to the place where you actually need to be eventually. But you've got to go through all this other stuff to get there, which
definitely.
Which
definitely.
You know, builds you as a person. And it is, and also now I'm assuming that you probably feel really authentic now, because it's you talking, it's you knowing what it is for your purposes, and you feel like you've really got that now.
Yeah, I feel it, I know it. There's just like this inner knowing that this is it, and that takes off so much stress and pressure as well.
Yeah.
And you know how this works. Once we take off that stress, then it obviously helps the universe to bring us even more abundance, even more gratitude, even more opportunities, like I said before.
Yeah.
So it's being able to get to that space where we really know deep down that no matter what happens, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And it's pure authenticity. Yeah.
It is. And sometimes I know I've experienced in the past as well, is you think there's a goal that is really, really important to you, and you're like plowing all your energy in it, and you just get really sucked into it, and then you kind of get knocked back or whatever, and you think, why did I get knocked back? And you get so obsessed with it that actually it's not going to happen, because you're having to drive it so hard. Perhaps it's not meant for you, and that's why it's not happening. And I think I've recognized that a few times, and then I think, okay. And then when you relax and you just taking things and letting things grow organically, then all of a sudden stuff comes in and you're like, wow, where did that come from? But that's because you're relaxing into who you are and actually where you're meant to be, rather than trying to force where you're meant to be.
Yeah, definitely.
If that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm following an online group right now called The Gift, which is absolutely fantastic. And we're looking at all of this. And the message is basically, we are the gift. We are all the gift. And one of the things she said quite recently, which really, really struck hard with me, was similar to what you've just said. Whenever we're in striving mode, that is telling us that this is not the right way to do it. So she said, if ever you feel yourself in striving mode, stop, because that's not the way to go. Yeah.
And I would absolutely agree with that, because I've experienced it several times, and I thought, well, why is this not happening? And you get so frustrated, and then all those other things come out that you don't particularly like about yourself. But then when you let it just happen, it does happen. It happens naturally. So yeah, I can absolutely resonate with that. But it's hard, isn't it? Sometimes if you want something so much and you're pushing for it, it is hard to back off and let go, because you think that is your path. But it's being brave enough to step back and go, actually, maybe that isn't meant for me. And whatever is meant for you will present itself. So you know, I mean, I think we could talk all day, Sarah, about this. But because we're very much on the same page here. But just thinking, you know, we're heading into February, you know, January's nearly done. If you've got one top tip for people that are listening this year and thinking about how they're going to evolve on purpose, what would your top tip be?
To come back to your heart, to really come back to your heart space And one of the ways you can do this is simply by closing your eyes, putting your hands on your heart space, just breathing in a little bit as you normally do, and then just asking the question out loud. It's maybe sort of, reinforcing it, but just saying, what do I need to know? And just listening. And it might be a message, it might be an image, it might be just a feeling. And just take that and get curious with that and just follow that and see where it leads.
I like that. I love that. Good. And that's something that you can do, when you're feeling a bit, it's a good thing to do as well, isn't it? To just let that intuition and that soul talk and those things come naturally. So, well, do you know what, Sarah, it's been lovely chatting with you. If people want to buy the book or they want to find out more about what you do, how can they find you?
So if they want to buy the book, it's available on Amazon for now. So you just go onto your Amazon account and you type Evolving on Purpose and you'll find the book. So it's available as a Kindle, but also as a paperback book. And if you want to find more about me and what I do, I've got a YouTube channel, which is called So Free Coaching, where you've got guided meditations, visualizations, some coaching advice, some of my interviews as well. And you can also find me with my website, which is www.so-free.life.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, thank you, Sarah, for joining us today. I am sure we'll have you back again at some point. But thank you and good luck with, evolving on purpose and, the way that you're now, supporting and living your purpose as well. So good luck and thank you.
Thanks, Jo.
A big thank you for taking the time out to listen to this podcast from the team at Yowah Radio. Remember to check us out live online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at yowahradio.co.uk. And if you'd like to join us as a guest on Yowah Radio or as a guest on the Yowah Radio podcast, we would love to hear from you. Simply email studio@yowahradio.co.uk. Once again, a big thank you for taking the time out to listen. This is the Yowah Radio podcast. Copyright applies.
Yowah Radio, bringing the feel-good feeling to every day.